Hello, my name is Petr Kosina and I am volunteer for Mickaboo for about 8 years now. I have parrots almost in my whole life. I got the first one, a cockatiel, when I was 6 years old. And since then I had many small species, budgerigars, lovebirds, Indian ringnecks, later on also Amazon, actually several Amazons, and right now I do have sulfur-crested cockatoo and African grey, both adopted from Mickaboo, and I'm occasionally fostering some other Mickaboo birds. But today I'm going to talk to you about foraging. I'll be talking a little bit about foraging is and why it is so important. I'll show you several different toys, foraging toys that you can make at home or that you can purchase. And at the end, I'll share with you some few resources that you may want to consult in order to learn more and get more inspiration. So first of all, what is it, foraging? Foraging means searching for food. And you can imagine that in their native environment, birds have to work hard to get their everyday food. Parrots often have to fly miles and miles to get into the place where that food of the season is available at different times of the year. And even when they reach the place, the food is not served in food bowls like in cages in our homes. They have to go into the trees or search in the ground, or depending on what type of bird and in which environment it is, spend hours every day searching for food and feeding. That's a very important activity that keeps them busy. Now, in most cages, there are bowls for water and food. If we only serve food in the food bowls and the bird just need to climb down and eat from the bowl, it's done maybe within 15-20 minutes, and then it's bored in the cage. What our task as their good parents is to provide them with so-called creative foraging, so that they actually have to work in order to get their daily dose of food. To start, it is very important to understand what is how is the natural habitat and feeding habits of the parrot species in your home, whether it's a budgie or cockatiel, which in their home habitat in Australia feeds mainly on the ground, or whether it's maybe an Indian ringneck or conure, which is much more often found foraging and searching for the food in crown of the trees and in different shrubs. That will influence significantly the way how we should think about creative foraging and what type of foraging toys should we use for given species. But let's start with the simplest thing. The really simplest thing is to divide the food into several feed bowls. So don't serve the all food for the day in just one bowl in one place of the cage. Place 2-3 more in different corners of the cage and split the dose so that your bird at least need to climb from one to another and is entertained for a few extra minutes. Another very simple way how you can enrich the feeding is to put over the food, especially if it's a dry food like the pellets here in my bowl, some kind of inert material. It can be shredded paper like this, or newspaper, or maybe the clean rests of the old toys that don't serve anymore. So just put them in, and the bird needs to either remove them or move them aside and find their food in between the different objects in the bowl. Another very simple thing that you can also try at home and for your birds is to cover the food bowl with some paper. In this case, I was using the baking paper, but it could be practically any type of clean paper. Important thing is to understand that foraging is not the behavior that the birds would be born or hatched with. They have to learn how to forage. In the nature, they learn foraging from their parents and from the peers in the flock. In Mickaboo, we often get birds from very unfortunate situations when they didn't have opportunity during their life to actually learn foraging. And we have to introduce them step by step into that behavior activity. So if I get such bird that doesn't really know what to do when I serve him or her a food in other way than just in the bowl, what I would possibly start with is the bowl with some favorite food, and I would put the paper over it, maybe just on the table or in the cage, so that bird can easily remove the paper and start eating. And it's over only after that that I would make it a little bit more complicated, maybe by fixing the paper over the bowl with rubber, like in this case, or filling the bowl with more material and placing the bowl in different parts of the cage, as I have already mentioned. Another very simple thing for many birds is to use whatever the food they like, originally or first as a treat, but later on even their normal everyday food, put it into the little paper cup like this one, twist, and put it in between the bars of the cage, or hang it on from the ceiling of the cage, so that they have to work to get it. Of course, same thing, if you have the bird that doesn't know what this is, maybe I would first place it in the cage open, just so the treat is visible and the bird see, or it's inside this, and will become more familiar with now finding that favorite food in this way. Another very simple thing that anybody of us can do is to use a wood. If it's a soft wood like this balsa, you can push some seeds, grains, maybe of corn or safflower or other favorites at the beginning, into that soft wood. You can see there are some corn seeds, there are pumpkin seeds, and there are safflower seeds, and the bird has to work and get them out from that balsa wood. If you don't have balsa, it could be any wood. You can just drill the holes and fill the seeds into the holes, so that bird is entertained and has to either try to get them out or actually tear apart the piece of wood. And that could be even this big one. This is originally made for rabbits, but I found it very useful for my birds. It's a little bit more hard for them to get into. If I put it in the little holes, in the bigger holes, it's not so easy to get inside. So that keeps them busy for a longer time. And a little bit more advanced is this thing that I believe all of you know, egg cartoon. Egg cartoon. So what I do at the beginning, when I've got the birds for first time, I would leave the egg cartoon open in the cage, and I would put the treats, in this case pistachio nut, and here is a Owen fresh bite, in the cage open like this, so they see the treats, they see in what object they are placed, they can get in at their own speed closer and use them, eat them. The day after, or a few days after, they would come to the cage, but this time in the box that's closed. A little bit more challenging. When they discover how to get into the box, again after a few more days, it would not be just in the closed box, but that box would be filled with some material, in this case newspaper, and closed. And so the birds can or have to work even harder to get their favorite treats. And when they get really good into this, or with this, then I use a paper bag. The same egg cartoon with treats and newspaper goes into the paper bag, and the whole paper bag goes to the cage. That gives to my birds good 10-15 minutes of entertainment to get into their favorite treats. What did you find? Okay. You got a power treat! Yay! Good foraging! But there are also many different foraging toys available on the market. When I thought about this video, I was thinking maybe it would be useful to divide them somehow. And one thing that came across to my mind is you could think about these toys as those that can be reused because the way how they work allows that. And others that once they are solved, the mystery is gone and then practically you can use them for a different bird or give them somebody else. Example of toy like that is this box that has two keys, and the bird has to position the keys in certain way in order to open the box. So when the keys get like this, it opens, and there is the cashew nut waiting as a key. When I brought this toy, I put it into my African Gray's cage. She would play with it for a moment and couldn't solve it, so lost interest. After a few days, I removed the toy from the cage, and then again after a week, I've returned it, and it was going on and on and on for several weeks. At the end, it took her, I think, about 3 months before she solved the puzzle, by positioning the keys by accident and opening it. Now, if I bring the toy to her cage now, it takes her less than a minute, sometimes just a few seconds to open it and get the treat. Meaning this toy doesn't really entertain her for a long time anymore. But I do have more birds, so it will be, or it is useful for other birds now. However, there are many other toys which can be refilled. I really like this little house. This little house has these wooden bars in the front. There are actually 2 rows of them, the thicker ones and thinner ones inside the color. So if your bird is smaller bird without a very strong beak, or it's smaller beak, you can just use the inner row of the bars. And the bird practically needs to remove or destroy the bars in order to get inside, and then remove the filling material, and somewhere there will be 1 or 2 treats. My birds really enjoy this, and it takes them, even my cockatoo actually, good 15-20 minutes to open at least 2 of these bars in order to get inside. It has a little door at the bottom that allows you to replace these wooden bars and refill the house. It can be actually much simpler toy like this. This is just a polyacrylate box. And as you can see, I'm using pieces of old toys that are cleaned as a filling material. There is a walnut and there is a pistachio somewhere there. When I first put it to the cage, my bird will vigorously shake it and try to get the treats in that way, but when she realizes it doesn't work, she will try to remove whatever comes to her beak first. And it's an entertainment, sometimes even for a few hours for them. Similarly, this metal cage is a perfect foraging toy. You can again fill it with the different shapes and different types of objects. I have this rattan ball here. There is a pistachio nut inside. Here you can see is a piece of paper. There is some treat inside that. And again, there is a green paper roll, which has another treat inside. And so the bird will be working a good amount of time in order to get all the possible treats from this. It's very easy to keep it clean. You remove the top, which I will not do, it will take me a few seconds. Remove the top, remove whatever is left there empty, and place the new filling materials inside. And I could go on and on because there are many different shapes and colors of plastic. Polycarbonate is a really hard plastic that's not easy to break. Many different toys that can be done in this way. The other thing that I like to do in case of this toy, it's a polyacrylate ball, and instead of filling it with some paper or other type of material, I actually fill it in with kale leaves or pieces of broccoli, and put a pistachio nut on top of it. And so my bird, even though she or he doesn't like much green veggie, in order to get to the pistachio nut, they have to remove that kale. And as they are trying to remove, it's breaking. And whether they like it or not, they are tasting it and they are eating small pieces. And so this is the way how you can introduce maybe the less favorite types of vegetables to the birds through this creative foraging. And there are also many different spinning wheels on the market, like this one, where birds need to position the openings. There are actually 2 different openings to the section with their favorite types of pellets. And at the end, I also wanted to show this type of toy, which maybe would be among those more expensive, because you need to buy not only the holder, but you need to also buy the paper boxes, which are of the same size as the holder. And the paper box again would be filled with a different type of material, the older toys and shredded paper or twigs with a treat. And then you can position it in the cage so that the birds first open the box and then search for the treats or just the common pellets inside. If you want to make it more challenging, you could position it even on the ceiling of the cage or simply in the corners where there are no perches closer, so the bird has to be hanging on the side of the cage. Just make it more challenging for them, especially when they become more familiar and not scared anymore of these things, of these toys in their cage, then make it more challenging for them. And as I promised, I wanted to share with you also some few resources. So there are many different books on the market that provide information about foraging and good ideas. A very good book is Birds for Dummies. The other good book that I've enjoyed reading is The Guide for a Well-Behaved Parrot, or Parrots, the Animal Answer Guide. And the books that I really enjoy are about parrot behavior, especially in their native habitat. That kind of helps me to understand their common behavior as a species in the nature. And that kind of then helps me to think about what type of toys or tricks and what food should I be introducing them to. So I really suggest that you also read the books like this. And of course, you can also find a lot of information about foraging on internet. On YouTube, there are possibly hundreds and hundreds of videos. The few good sources of information that I follow is a Parrot Wizard by Michael Shazin. It's a young guy who has 3 parrots and trained them into doing incredible tricks. And he also has several short videos introducing different foraging types and foraging toys, so I highly suggest that. Another person whom I really closely follow is Barbara Heidenreich. She's an animal behavior consultant and specialist, and again, not only working with parrots, but with many different animal species or pet species, and she provides very good advices even for birds with some behavioral issues. And also guys from Bird Tricks, the name is Bird Tricks. They have also several videos, not only of theirs, but also of their clients and colleagues that I found very useful. So this is all from me today. I hope you learned something new. Share your experience in comments to this video, because the more we share, the more we know. Thank you for your attention, and hope to see you sometimes in some Mickaboo event.